From WNIJ Studios on the campus of Northern Illinois University, this is Sessions from Studio A. On his latest series of albums, multi-instrumentalist and producer Micky Torpedo looked to the skies for a new source of inspiration. He released Bird Songs Volume 1 in collaboration with the Sinisippi Audubon Society, with each song inspired by a different bird from our region. With the upcoming Bird Songs Volume 2 set for release this weekend, Micky Torpedo stopped by Studio A for a live performance, and we'll talk with him and Jennifer Caruta of the Sinisippi Audubon Society. It's Micky Torpedo's Bird Songs, coming up this hour on Sessions from Studio A. This is Sessions from Studio A. Thanks for joining us. I'm Spencer Tritt, welcoming Micky Torpedo back to Studio A. Every time we've had him here on the show, it's always something different and always some great music. His latest project, Bird Songs, is a collaboration with the Sinisippi Audubon Society to highlight birds of our region, many of which are endangered. We'll talk more about the project later on. Each piece will start with a bird song before the music begins. See if you can hear how the bird call influences the music. First up, we have the Baltimore Oriole. It's Micky Torpedo with Bird Songs on Sessions from Studio A.
One, two, three.
This is Sessions from Studio A. Welcoming back to the show again, Micky Torpedo from Rockford. Micky, thanks so much for coming back and playing in Studio A today.
Thanks for having me.
We're hearing you in a totally different style once again today. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we have some other folks to introduce, too. There were some familiar faces in the band today that have also been on the show before. Can you introduce the band that's playing along with you in Studio A today?
Sure. The instrumentation today, we had Carl Ropp, a.k.a. Carl Torpedo, on upright bass. We had Heather Camacho on violin, and Cade Eastham on percussion and some banjo. I wrangled them into playing some banjo.
And we've got a special guest with us, too, today here. We have Jennifer Caruta, president of Sinisippi Autobahn Society. Jennifer, thanks for coming out today. First off, tell us about this album. What got this project going?
That was part of the reason why Jennifer's here today, because Jennifer kind of inspired the idea. So I released a series of 4 ambient albums based on the seasons a while ago, and you can finish the story if you want.
Sure. At the time, my daughter was taking lessons from him, and so I just kind of approached him. I'm like, hey, these albums are really great, but I keep hearing like there should be a bird in the album. Like I feel like, there's this pause in whatever song this is, and I feel like I could hear a bird there. And
always advocating for the birds.
Yeah, always advocating for the birds.
I love that.
So, and then instead of adding to the existing albums, he's like, well, why don't we just do an album? And that's how it came about.
This was a few years back for you?
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was actually kind of more towards the start of the pandemic, I think, and it just took a while for it to evolve. I think I started working on the music almost right away, but then for various reasons, things got non-pandemic related, oddly enough. Things kind of got pushed aside. We were trying to get secure permission to get the bird call sounds, which was Cornell Lab of Ornithology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were not excited about us using them, so it took a little while to secure the rights to use those for the recordings.
Oh, interesting.
And then, those are the compositions are based specifically on those recordings, right? So it was kind of, that took a while to get that to happen, and then from there on out, kind of life took over. But so it took a while to get there, to get the album completed. But what did you say it was, 2022 that it came out? Yeah. So
2022.
So it might have been 2020-ish that we kind of started it, that had the idea, and
That sounds about right.
kind of worked towards that, which that's kind of on the schedule with the new album too, because the new album is going to be out in Volume 2 will be out in the spring, and that's taken almost 2 years to get that to happen too. So.
Yes, we'll talk about Volume 2 coming soon here in a little bit, but I got to ask, so they weren't excited about you using the bird calls? You had to actually get permission to use their... I didn't know bird calls could be, copyrighted.
So, yeah, they actually are. So I listened to hours of calls from their library. So you can go to the Cornell Library online. They have a massive collection of bird calls. And I kind of went through them looking for ones that actually sounded good. So a lot of those that are attached to some sort of recording rights. I know exactly how that worked, but I know that Micky had to sign off on something. I can't remember what it was called. It was like a contract or something where it was signed off on for that.
I mean, for this project, really a lot of the work, the footwork is Jennifer's doing, because she's the one with the knowledge. I just have the instruments, so it's been fun learning for me to see, how that side of things work as far as conservation and that, but she was right on it and was researching. Spent probably a lot of time researching the right species for various reasons. I would love for you to go into that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm curious about what went into selecting the bird calls.
Yeah, it was important for me to select birds that were in our flyway. So we're in the Mississippi flyway, right? So you want people who are going to listen to the album to be able to make a connection to it. And this is local music. I didn't know how far it would reach, but Mississippi flyway made sense because of it's our area. We're going to see these birds, or you'll have a chance to see these birds, and even in Winnebago County. I also went through the Survival by Degrees report that Audubon publishes, which is a report that highlights birds and how climate change will have an impact on their ranges if we don't take action to do something about climate change. The website's pretty cool. You can go in and type in your zip code and a species of birds, and it will show you how on the maps how the climate change is shifting their ranges. But also on this album, there's also 5 species that are in the state of Illinois that are considered endangered. So
Oh, wow.
there are some endangered species on this album, and I think it's just so important to highlight what's important for our state in conservation.
Micky Torpedo, recorded live in WNIJ's Studio A. That one was Northern Harrier from his album Birdsongs Volume 1, Sounds of the Mississippi Flyway. That album is out streaming on Spotify and Apple Music, and you can pick up a copy over on MickyTorpedo.com. Proceeds of the album benefit Sinisippi Audubon Society as well as Natural Land Institute. And be on the lookout for Birdsongs Volume 2, set for release this Saturday. Stay tuned for more music and more from my talk with Micky Torpedo and Jennifer Caruta of Sinisippi Audubon Society. That's coming up here on Sessions from Studio A. This is Sessions from Studio A on WNIJ. We're hearing Birdsongs Volume 1, recorded live in Studio A with Micky Torpedo playing guitar and piano, Carl Torpedo on bass, Heather Camacho playing violin, and Cade Eastham with percussion and playing the banjo. Volume 2 of this series of albums is set for release this Saturday, so keep a lookout for that if you like what you're hearing. Each song is inspired by a different bird in our region, many of which are classified as endangered. Up next, we have the Sandhill Crane. It's Micky Torpedo, recorded live in WNIJ's Studio A. was the music kind of influenced by any of these bird calls? It's like the musicality of the bird calls or kind of the tone? Did that go into any of the compositions?
Sure, it is absolutely 100% inspired by the bird call. So on the album itself, each track starts with the bird call and the composition starts. And so it was important that, Jennifer and I discussed it, like we wanted this to be a creative art project, but it needs to be educational, and we want to just bring some new ears and some new eyes to birds and conservation in general. So it was important to me that it was very focused on the birds, which I could sit there and maybe notate out an exact bird call and make a song out of that, but that probably wouldn't be that listenable necessarily. So I would take elements like tonal center of the pitch. If there's a nice melody there, I'll take the tonal center or part of that melody, or if it's percussive, like the American bit turn is very, and I took that lazy sort of call, and because that call always reminds me of like being out in the summertime or going kayaking down the Kishwaukee or whatever. Like you hear that sound, and I took kind of that lazy tempo of the call and wanted to create that sort of feeling like you're out in the summer and you're hearing the cicadas and all the other things chirping away, in the background.
I love that. And people may have heard you with your other bands, more rock oriented,
Sure.
Big electric guitars and amps and everything. Have you worked acoustically like this before? Kind of more stripped down. Is this something you've done in the past, or is this newer to you? Talk about kind of working acoustically on these.
I've done lots of things. Short answer. Long answers. I've always studied and played and performed different genres. I was an NIU student. I went to the music. I got my bachelor's from NIU, and I was in the music program here, studying classical voice. But I was a touring drummer with various bands, putting myself through school at that time, and so I played with folk bands, rock bands in my early days. I played in funk bands with big horn sections, and I played in speed metal bands and death metal bands. And I've got a studio where I produce and record artists out of that studio in Rockford, and work with a lot of artists that have come through in your studio. But I'm just very familiar with different genres and writing and guiding different styles of music.
Awesome.
So this is there's a lot of other genres I haven't really explored that are kind of part of my palette. So this was just one that was kind of fun and exciting, to pull from some of those different parts of my life,
For sure. And Underground Squirrel
Underground
Studios.
Studio, yep.
People can check that out. Did you put any like limitations or restrictions on kind of the sound or instrumentation for this project? Like we're not going to use any amps. We're going to keep it this certain way. Was there anything like that went into the writing?
Absolutely. I love giving myself limitations. I feel way more creative with limitations. So for the volume 1 is very conscious right at the top. When we had the idea to do it, I wanted it all to be earthy instruments. So there's not an amplifier that's on the album. There's no electric guitar. There's no electric anything. It's all like acoustic violin, piano, acoustic guitar, and the percussion. So it was important to me that it's just very earthy feel for the songs.
As we have spring coming up, people are going to be hearing some more birds out. And Jennifer, I'm wondering if you can give us any tips for bird watching or bringing more birds, to your yard. I just moved recently out of a apartment overlooking a parking lot to a little house, so I have a yard for the first time, and I was loving all the birds this past fall and summer. What are some things people can do this spring? Bring more birds to their yards.
Yes, we're going to approach migration, and May is peak migration month for birds that travel, from South America all the way up to Canada. And some birds we only see during migration. So, a lot of the warblers, for instance, they don't necessarily breed here in northern Illinois, but they definitely pass through here during migration, which is why you see a lot of birders out in the field, because it's the one time of year you get to see, something like the Canada warbler.
Micky Torpedo with Short-Eared Owl from Birdsong's Volume 1, Sounds of the Mississippi Flyway. Find the album on the usual streaming services and more on MickyTorpedo.com. You can also follow him on Instagram at Micky Torpedo and check out more from his studio at undergroundsquirrelstudios.com. You can find behind-the-scenes video from their live performance in Studio A over on our website, WNIJ.org, and on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned, there's still more music and more from my conversation with Micky Torpedo and Jennifer Caruta coming up. This is Sessions from Studio A. This is Sessions from Studio A with Micky Torpedo. We've been hearing from his album Birdsong's Volume 1, and stay tuned in just a little bit. I'll talk with him about Volume 2, which is set for release this weekend. But first, let's get back into some more music. This next one is Cerulean Warbler. It's Micky Torpedo with Birdsong's Volume 1 on Sessions from Studio A. Let's talk about Volume 2 then, coming soon. So you've been working on the follow-up here to the album we heard today. Tell us a little bit about the production, the making of this new second album.
Sure, we went about it kind of the same way. Jennifer picked the species, and you want to talk about the species?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thought, right? They're Mississippi Flyway, they're part of the Birds and Climate Change Report, or the Survival by Degrees report that identifies birds that are considered threatened by climate change. But also, for this album, it was birds that you would hear or could have heard at Belleville Prairie. So there's that connection to like when conservation is so important that we're taking away places like Belleville Prairie. It's important to recognize the sounds that you might miss from that.
Right.
Kind of an ode to Belleville Prairie.
I mean, there's still a portion of it left. I don't know what the airport's intention is with it, but there's still a little bit left.
And where can people check out the album once it's out?
Sure. My performance name is Micky Torpedo, so MickyTorpedo.com. You can find me out there. Also, my music's on all the streaming services and YouTube and all that. The dilemma of modern musicians is how do we release music anymore, right? So we went with CDs for the first album, which we'll probably do some CDs again for the second one. But it was also important to me from the beginning on this project that Sinnissippi, these albums are meant to be fundraiser for Sinnissippi. And for the second album, we're going to expand that a little bit. So it's going to raise some funds, hopefully, for Sinnissippi Audubon and also another entity that we're still working on. But the only way as a musician you can make money is by selling stuff, and people don't really buy CDs, and vinyl's too expensive to press. So as far as how to support the cause, you can buy CDs even if you don't listen to them. That's a good way to support the cause.
You can download it too.
You can download it too, and it's at my website. As you can download it from there's various places, but it's on all the streaming platforms. So if you type in Micky Torpedo, you'll find pretty much all of that catalog of stuff.
And what else is coming up for you as we get into the spring here? Any other plans? I'm sure you're busy finishing up the record and everything. What else is coming up for you?
We're working on planning for a release show this time. The first album kind of came out without any fanfare, but just mainly because I didn't even know how to put it together as live performances. But this next album, we decided early on to make sure we can perform it. So first step is just getting it done. In the next few weeks here, I'm going to wrap up the recording process, and then the plan is to have it out on May 11th, World Migration Day, right? So just to sync it up with something that makes sense, bird-related.
World Migration Day,
yeah.
That's awesome.
So hopefully we'll have a performance probably at Severson Dells. We talked to Ann over there, and that might happen. But again, with all the different instrumentation, it might be a little bit of a large undertaking. So if it all pans out the way I hope, we'll try and promote it as much as possible. And maybe we can do some more shows, maybe not if it's too much of a lift. I don't know. But.
Awesome. And people can check out again. That's MickyTorpedo.com.
Yep.
Right. And then Jennifer, where can people learn more about Sinnissippi Audubon Society? And is there anything coming up for the society as we get into the spring too?
Sure. Well, I know a lot of people know us for Louise and Brian, who are the peregrine falcons that nest in downtown Rockford, and they, of course, are year-round residents. They don't tend to migrate, but it is courtship season right now, so the cameras are on. People are going to be watching.
Scandalous.
Yeah. Dive into the personal lives of some peregrine falcons. You'd be surprised how many people are obsessed with that.
Awesome.
Nest cam. And then also World Migratory Bird Day is a huge event in May. And then you had asked me about, attracting a bird to your backyard, and the Baltimore Oriole is one of the songs on the album. And there's a super colorful, beautiful bird, and you can get these little orange holders for them, so you can slice an orange in half and put it in your backyard on this little stake thing. And it's one of the few birds that will come and just eat off of oranges, and like I said, they're just a beautiful bird.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Micky and Jennifer, thanks so much for coming out to Studio A and playing for us, and really excited about Volume 2 coming soon, Micky. Thank you both again.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.
Micky Torpedo, closing out his live performance in WNIJ's Studio A. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's show, and thanks to Micky Torpedo for performing live and talking with us about his latest project, Bird Songs Volume 1, Songs of the Mississippi Flyway. Volume 2 is set for release this weekend on Saturday. Find it on streaming services and on MickyTorpedo.com. He'll also have an album release show for that at Severson Dells. That's on June 8th. And we will be out there recording the show, so you can say hi to us when you go out to that. There's behind-the-scenes video from this performance, along with this full episode, posted over on WNIJ.org and on the WNIJ YouTube channel. Find more about Sinisippi Audubon Society on sinisippiaudubon.org. A big thanks also to Jennifer Karuta for talking with us this hour. Make sure to buy a copy of Birdsongs Volume 2 when it's out, because all sales will benefit Sinisippi Audubon Society as well as Natural Land Institute. Sessions from Studio A is produced by yours truly and Mike Lundgren. I'm Spencer Tritt, and thanks so much for joining me this week. I'll see you next time on Sessions from Studio A.